Hey everyone, and welcome to the Empowered Nutrition Podcast. I'm so thrilled today to have a guest who I've known for many years and greatly admire her work. Gayatri Saldivar, welcome to the show.
Hi, so lovely to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. So I just always love to hear more of the backstory about people's work, and you're just so special in the world of dietetics with what you do in terms of helping your clients find the root cause and find true health. So maybe tell me a little bit about how you got into the work that you do.
Yeah, so I started my private practice right out of grad school, which I think, like you, I had an amazing business entrepreneurship program at Eastern Michigan University. And so they had us build a website.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So good.
So I think that really gave me the leg up in that I
Mhm.
literally had my first client right when I got my credential. I was, having that conversation. I was like, wait, what do I charge? What do I charge? Wait, okay, I have a website that says all of this already.
I made a
Um,
business plan. Like, yeah, so good.
yeah. So I was like ready. And then on top of that, I did the IFNA program
Mhm.
in that last summer stretch before I graduated. So I had some forms, I had some idea about how I wanted to practice. So literally got rolling right away and did not stop there. I feel like I just kept, building, building, growing, with, collecting all the tools and resources, kind of like a hoarder. It's like any tool and resources, I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I was, doing various different trainings that nonstop since then, got my IFNCP credential. Um, and then I was literally getting my practice off the ground when the pandemic happened. And
Mm.
it squashed everything that I had even just started to build. Like all my packages were ending, and I didn't really know how to continue them along. So we just ended, and
Oh,
it felt like everything was ending,
horrible.
like everybody was,
Yeah.
uh, kind of making a lot of changes at that time.
Yeah.
I did have some in-person, clients, and so, of course, I stopped doing that, and yeah, so I just didn't even know how to continue the process, so I found Dr. Dan Kalish at that time, and it completely transformed how I practice, and on top of that, um just a few short months later, I started to get more clients again and, really build more of a long-term plan. So,
Yeah.
um, that really helped a lot.
Yeah. Tell me more about you and like your interest in like why nutrition, why functional medicine.
Yeah, so I have been in this, field or world for since 2003. I originally had my very first nutrition class, and I've always been kind of on that edge of something different.
Mm.
And when I learned, okay, what a dietitian is, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to play this, you know,
Yeah.
game because I know I'm built for something else. I know I'm
Mm.
outside the box, and they didn't even have those words. I didn't even know that word functional nutrition then. It was
Yeah.
like kind of a holistic, was the term that was used more. But
Yeah.
I knew from the get-go that's the route I was going. I just had to take a very long route. And mainly I got into nutrition myself for my own personal weight goals. And
Mm. Yeah.
and it's funny because I never wanted to specialize in weight loss only because my own journey brought me to functional medicine, and that was I wanted to dig deeper. I wanted to look at the gut. I wanted to look at, more root cause. And I know the weight loss industry can be pretty surface level, and it's difficult on that end. Not
Yeah.
all, because I know you're doing a pretty in-depth um, version. So, but yeah. So, anyways, I just wanted to focus more on what was the root cause of these metabolic issues.
Yeah.
So that's what brought me into nutrition.
So good. Yeah. I love hearing people's stories because I think it just really underscores, I think, the need in terms of so often it seems like people are coming into this kind of integrative and functional space because of a failing of the conventional approaches in terms of their own health journey, and just kind of realizing that um, that there is another path, and that and that there's such a need for access to it, and that it can be so life changing for people if you can help them find and address root causes in an effective way that's not overwhelming and like it's sustainable. It seems like such a win-win to me.
100%. I remember reading, gosh, like I used to call this book my Bible. It was like Cracking the Metabolic Code by James Laval. And I just
So good.
remember I just remember feeling like, "Oh, I want to have access to this kind of thing." And I didn't know anybody at that time who was doing, again, I never heard the word functional medicine.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I just knew that that was the kind of practitioner I wanted to be. And I feel
Yeah.
like I'm finally living that dream that I have had
Hmm.
since literally 2003.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
just
Getting below the surface and making connections between systems, and like, so one thing that I love that you talk about is like you talk about the gut hormone and detox connection. um tell me a little bit about your work in terms of like who are some of the people that you think can benefit from like your type of approach, where we look at how like gut health and hormones and like toxin clearance is all connected, and like what can be the manifestations if you have problems in those connections.
Yeah, so great question. I mainly serve clients who come to me based on their symptoms. So, they may have a diagnosis, but I'm not as concerned of their diagnosis as I am of like what's their symptom manifestation, and
Hmm.
okay, that's why we need to look at the root causes of that symptom manifestation. So, like people who are struggling with brain fog and fatigue and anxiety, some sleep issues, and of course, the big grand gut issues, which can just be a
Yeah.
lot of things from upper GI to lower GI.
Yeah.
So, that could really hold many different diagnoses in there,
Mhm.
or many different types of struggles, and, even those who haven't been diagnosed yet as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, another thing I love about your approach is like I know you get quite a lot into testing, which sounds obvious. I mean, you go to get healthcare and they want to run labs, but I find that often in the more integrative space, it's kind of crazy town where there's people that maybe just are very minimal in their testing, and next thing you know, they're recommending a parasite cleanse or whatever. And so maybe tell me a little bit about, like, let's say you do have this person who has some anxiety, some digestive symptoms, some sleep problems. What are some of the types of tests that you're recommending for that person?
Great question. So the first thing I do is I do a comprehensive root cause analysis, which is a thorough assessment of their various systems, their body systems, and what could be imbalanced here. So it's really just a screening, but I'm looking at, screening their stress hormones. I'm screening their gut issues. I'm screening their, how compromised their detox system is, how sensitive they are to various different toxins. So with this really thorough workup, then we generally my clients order a minimum of 3 to 4 labs
Mhm,
right from the get-go, because it's all part of this kind of foundational workup to address that gut hormone detox connection.
mhm,
And this is all using the Kalish method. I'm Kalish trained,
mhm,
like I said earlier. So um, so we really look deep into the stress hormones and, balance that as it is, gosh, I feel like in this day and this time, like who is not who has not been impacted by some, pretty severe stress, whether it
mhm,
was during the pandemic or, you know, other things in life. Was it a death in the family, a divorce, childbirth, multiple children? That kind of puts a lot of stress on our bodies. So,
mhm,
this is kind of how most bodies fall apart. And so
mhm,
looking at this angle that the stress hormones really need to be balanced, because when we start to have that imbalanced stress hormones, it starts to break down our gut lining. We start to become catabolic. We start to use resources from our body to keep going, to get away from that, lion, to give us more energy so that we can run away. But if we're chronically running away from this lion, we are degrading our gut lining. And when our gut lining is getting so compromised, we now have this possibility that even like foods that are undigested can now enter, or basically anything. Now we are susceptible to pathogens, um, and so then we can then develop some sort of infection. Not everybody, but this is kind of the progression. So seeing somebody's GPS settings, where they're at in this progression of, this inflammation response is happening at the gut lining. Once it's compromised, we're going to, and that's where, some autoimmune situation can come in and start to attack not only the gut lining, but then our own body's tissues. So, especially if somebody's, suffering from Hashimoto's, and these are great places to look. And then once we have all these, toxins coming from the gut, circulating, then now our liver is getting overloaded, in addition to the potential environmental toxins, which that is enormous. Like we are in, I'm sorry to say, like it's kind of a doomsday kind of thought that we are bombarded with toxins galore in our life, whether it's in our water, in our food, in our, even when we really try hard to eat well, like there's something, we're still getting something, all the California fires, and now it's like everywhere now. Even the East Coast was having crazy fires. So yeah, it's this gut hormone detox connection is really important, because if we can identify where the problems really started and correct them in the order that they occur, for the most part, we can make some good headway. I always like to use the analogy that if I'm, trying to save money in a bank account, and I'm throwing away I'm putting away money, every week to save, and somebody else is taking that money out every week, I'm not getting anywhere. I feel like that's the same thing if we aren't correcting the stress response, and we're only working in the gut, and we aren't correcting the stress. It's like that same analogy, we're just kind of spinning our own wheels. Same thing with the gut in the detox. If we aren't correcting the gut and we're only correcting the detox, then we're just kind of spinning around, not really getting anywhere. So looking at this kind of whole picture and the circular, like how they're all related, is super important. So I combine that foundational workup with also a foundational kind of comprehensive blood workup. So, what the doctor should be doing, but isn't, because they're concerned with whether or not somebody has a diagnosis to confirm whether or not these labs are justified. So I do a pretty thorough workup on everybody with their blood work as well. And then looking at micronutrients and making sure that, the fatty acids and the amino acids, and looking at other fat soluble antioxidants and minerals are all, repleted, because this can all drastically impact somebody's ability to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it sounds like there's gut testing, and then maybe the hormone testing is adrenal testing, and then there's some use conventional, or not the lab work that people typically get, but labs that are available, at least from a conventional lab. So maybe around like lipids, and maybe like a homocysteine and a vitamin D and things like that. And then maybe there's some micronutrient testing. And then tell me about the detox pathways. What are some, like, how are you testing around that?
So I use the individualized optimal nutrition test. I know many practitioners can't get a hold of that. So a good comparison would be like Nutraval or Metabolomics maybe, but they're still missing some markers. But yeah, so that is already included in my testing. When I'm looking at micronutrients, I'm also looking at detox. I'm looking
Mhm.
at, heavy metals in there. I'm looking at how is the liver's, the pathways, how are they clearing their toxins? Is their glutathione tanked out, which is your master antioxidant? When
Mhm.
that's gone, that's like the worst thing to happen on the test. Your defenses are gone. You basically that toxin is winning, and so
Mhm.
I always think of it as a battle.
Yeah,
It's like good and
totally.
evil.
Yeah, yeah, the good guys are losing.
Yeah. So
Okay,
that's
so
embedded in my practice to get that detox component with all the micronutrients as well.
okay. Maybe tell me like, these results come back, and then maybe walk me through what maybe a plan might look like. I know it probably depends, but what are some of the types of things that maybe would come out of seeing these results, and then we see that there's problems along this gut hormone detox pathway. What does the plan typically look like?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So, we're really using that lab work as a structure here. Now
Mhm.
we see what's going on with the adrenals. Maybe there's also some neurotransmitters that are out of balance as well from the ion test. So combining those two together to really see, okay, can we do a really comprehensive brain support program where we can, balance some stress hormones and neurotransmitters at the same time. A lot of times that's like a really great place to start. So we might do that for a few months. Then we work on some gut stuff. If they find if we find a parasite and we got a lot more to work on. So it just depends on, how much is going on. I'm always relieved when that person's stool test comes back and it's like, woo, we don't have to do that.
Yeah,
We can
yeah,
skip
for
fast
sure.
forward.
Yeah.
So depending on, what's going on, we might have to do various different steps. And so I segment it all up, but we have a clear pathway now. We have a
Mhm.
clear pathway of where we're going for that first couple of months, the next couple of months, the next couple of months. So I think that helps reduce that overwhelm of trying to
Mhm.
tackle it all at the same time. So,
Yeah.
I think, gosh, you know what? I remember Dr. Dan Kalish telling us that, his, very first, test, and he just tried to give everybody everything and try to correct everything. And then I'm
Mhm.
just laughing because I'm like, that's what I did too, you know?
Yeah. Rookie
Like,
mistake.
I'm sure everybody does. It's like
Mhm.
you think you're being really good and thorough and you're trying to give them everything that you saw. And it's true, we probably do wanna, like, tell them everything that we saw, but to try to correct that and give them 20 supplements is very overwhelming, it's not doable. I guess we have to think about, would we wanna do that?
Mhm.
Do we wanna take 20 supplements? No.
Right.
So it's really just, like, being able to stagger the approach and work on the adrenals and, neurotransmitters first, work on the gut
Mhm.
some, really spend the time to deep dive and go slow and thorough, and
Mhm.
then get to that detox replete with the nutrients. And
Mhm.
once in a while, there'll be some variation for, oh my gosh, this is like your biggest problem here, and
Yeah.
we need to focus on that, so it doesn't always adhere to that same process.
Right.
Having that structure to begin with is huge for getting results and getting progress. And I
Yeah.
think it helps the client feel like they're supported more with some structure,
Mhm.
uh, while we work on some lifestyle to go with it as well,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there are definitely outliers, but in general, let's say you have someone who they have digestive problems, the findings on their gut test, they have adrenal symptoms, and they have an irregular adrenal test, and then they have signs of poor detox, and they have outliers on their ion showing poor detox. What would you say is the most common like order of operations in terms of like how you address those things in terms of I would imagine that like there's like a more common way that it's best to tackle that, but what do you think?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely think that working on that adrenal and neurotransmitters first, then working on anything related to the gut first,
Mhm.
I mean, second, and then going into the more of the detox and nutrient support. And mainly that's because, again, like I said, if we are not addressing that stress support part, we're just kind of draining that bank account. We're draining the gut lining at the same time as us trying to work on the gut lining. It doesn't make sense. So we have to really support that, gut brain connection first, and then support the gut. And then, support that detox. Because again, if we're pumping toxins from the gut, I can't tell you how many stool tests I've now seen where the detox as well, where it seems like they've got a lot of heavy metals. We work on the gut. We didn't even do a heavy metal detox. We retest because it just took us so long. And the heavy metal issue cleared itself because all those toxins from the gut have kind of reduced.
Yeah.
So
that's an interesting thing, because I feel like there's some teachers that always say I think a lot of practitioners think this way, like first that you have to get the detox running well, then you work on the gut, because the gut work can make a lot of toxic burden. But then again, I could see the other side of the coin where it's like, well, the gut has a big role in detoxification. Like that's the third phase of detox, is like clearing the toxins out, and the gut has a big role in that, in terms of like the metabolites made by the microbiome and how they deconjugate things and recycle them versus letting them clear. And so I could see how you would want to optimize that in order to support detoxification pathways in that way. But then I guess it would just depend on what you're seeing in terms of like, is it more liver centric? And then in that case, maybe you start there.
Yeah, I've heard that same thing too. So, just balancing, like, where are they coming from? What is that process about? But I do agree. I think that, what are we doing when we're excreting toxins? We're pooping. So I do feel like we're pooping, we're sweating, we're, drinking water. So I do feel like those things do need to be addressed, which is all part of, lifestyle too. Are we getting enough fiber and water? And, are we exercise? Like all the basics that everybody knows, but needs a little bit of coaching support, hand holding sometimes to make it regular. So actually I do have a program that I help, with all of that lifestyle and diet component to really complement the lab-based treatments.
Yeah.
I have a gut hormone detox program.
Lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's so good, because I think where dietitians tend to do well is we tend to be less likely to just kind of give out complex plan and expect the patient to just like implement this whole complicated plan on their own and like figure it out with like very little support. I think maybe it's just because our job has a lot of behavioral element to it. We kind of realize that people do need more support, and whether it's that you meet more often with them, or you have a intern that meets more often with them, or you've built out a program that sends them ongoing content. I think those are all great ways to help people actually be supported through something that's very difficult, which is changing their lifestyle. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like, I did the same thing. Like I said, I just gave somebody 20 supplements and that was it. And then I didn't realize, like, oh, the pandemic's happening and, I have to, close everything down, but I just gave somebody 20 like, why was I not thinking that they needed to be supported in this process?
Sure. Yeah, totally.
It's a really good, and guess what happened? It's no surprise. Didn't follow it,
Right. Yeah. What about food and nutrition when it comes into play with all this? I'm sure you can individualize every plan, but what are some of the common things that you're seeing or recommending in terms of either like dietary frameworks for people to follow, or like specific things to increase or reduce or focus on? Like what are some common nutritional approaches you'll take?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in the very, very beginning, in that root cause analysis session, I'm giving that nutrition care plan. We're starting out with some basics, and that's really the opportunity for me to review their food record and see kind of where their starting point is.
Mhm.
If I see that they have a lot of just basic stuff, of course, me just giving a nutrition care plan just because I said it and gave it doesn't mean that it's checked off the list and it's done.
Yeah.
So I kind of use that as a gauge too to figure out, okay, does this person need a lot of support with just basic, And again, in that gut hormone detox program, there is, quite a bit of nutrition, foundational nutrition stuff. But again, just because I gave it doesn't mean they watched it.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to find out if they need that kind of just basic support just to get them to eat balanced meals and have enough just the foundation here of
Mhm.
having enough protein, having enough water, having, enough phytonutrients and then, yeah, if they're really struggling with a lot of gut issues and not having any sort of, meal regularity or, just difficulty tolerating meals, then we can get more individualized. I'm a CLT like you, so I can pull out that, elimination diet,
Mhm.
that's really tailored to their bodies, but that can get pretty complicated too once we're doing all these other labs. So a lot
Yeah.
of times too, we might just stick with something a little more simple, if we need to do some sort of, therapeutic diet, we might do like a low FODMAP. Sometimes just getting them, I might just do a little 5-day elemental reset if they're really struggling and they aren't eating very well. Um,
Mhm.
that can just kind of jumpstart things and help us get to a good baseline. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is a big challenge when, just like how to keep it, simple for everybody, but also like in a way that's going to help them. Because quite honestly, what I'm finding too is that when the gut is just so messed up,
Mhm.
they're they're not like we're definitely not going to heal it with just diet alone. And I think that there's a
Yeah.
misconception out there that you
Mhm.
know this diet's going to be the end all be all, and I don't see that happening when there's a parasite involved or some sort of major um, overgrowth happening.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it's like the two extremes of either like saw some health influencer on Instagram that convinced me that I could just follow some super restrictive diet and fix all my problems. And then there's the other side of the coin. I literally hear this out people's mouths all the time of like I went to my primary care provider with my insurance and they told me that I shouldn't think about my diet. Like my diet has nothing to do with my problems. It's like truth is definitely somewhere in the middle.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And uh, I was just joking about this, but I hear this a lot, and this is kind of a big challenge I hear so often is that, the client might be struggling with total gut breakdown in some way because of poor diet. That's how they got there. But their main goal is to be able to consume that food again or consume beer again on a regular basis. I'm like, do you want to do that? Is there
Yeah.
I feel like there's a disconnect here of, I just want to be able to drink beer again with all my friends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but that's how you
Yeah.
got here.
So someone thinks they might have trouble along this axis. Maybe quickly tell me, like, across the three, what are some quick wins that you give people around, like, gut hormone detox. What are some specific things that people should be doing food wise to better support their gut, their hormones, and their detox pathways?
Great question. So it's funny. I've had huge wins in the first couple of weeks just by somebody chewing more.
Mm,
We're in a fast-paced society. We're constantly multitasking while we're eating. And if we can just slow down, chew our food, take longer, it's
mhm,
okay.
mhm.
We're going to get better digestion. And, maybe some
Yeah.
symptoms are absolutely just because of undigested food. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's huge right there. Making sure that we're having enough protein. I know we're in a very conflicted environment right now with understanding where we're at with protein. So
Yeah.
some say more, some say less, and I know so many people think that what we think is considered to be adequate, a lot of people think is too much protein or a
Mm,
lot high protein. I have this conversation a lot. They're like, I don't know about the high protein diet. And I'm like, I'm not talking about high protein. I'm just talking about meeting your
yeah,
needs. So
right.
I think our definition of what is high, what is adequate, we need to get
What
really.
sources they're good versus bad. There's so much controversy around it. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, is it vegan or
Mhm,
is it, animal based, and what are the pros and cons of both? And yeah, so understanding that I think is huge, and having
mhm,
enough protein, because that's going to balance your hormones.
mhm.
Having enough protein.
Yeah.
Um, I think, as far as detox goes, it's like the first step is don't let them in. Where can we, and I feel like this is like a huge rabbit hole, because so much of how we were brought up, we may not even recognize, right down to the detergents that we use, the soaps that we use, the body care products that we use might be contributing to our toxic load, or, the food choices that we are accustomed to because of the brands that we grew up with. So, or even just kitchenware. And my favorite, if you know me, I talk about plastic endlessly and how it is
Yeah.
just
The
everywhere.
worst.
And yes,
Yeah.
when we're talking about balancing hormones, this is huge, and also supporting the gut and the detox. So we're kind of getting all three.
Mhm,
And it is hard to eliminate all plastic, but I think it's just like recycling. We probably won't have 100%, but if we can, at least be in that 80-90% proactive, in reducing our plastic
mhm.
because it really is coming
Yeah.
into our bodies. Yeah. So, switching to glass for liquids and heated items. And I find that the biggest challenge is like when we're traveling, or, and there's circumstances we cannot control. They take away my water bottle. They, or they won't let me fill it, or you go out somewhere and they're only using plastic, and you have to sometimes you have to go out of your way. I feel like,
Yeah.
just, like, "Excuse
Absolutely.
me, can you please give
Yeah.
me glass instead of plastic?"
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's the last 10% is probably as hard as the first 90%. But for getting to that, if, if you're like most people where you really can't get to 100%, it's just not realistic. Well, then get to the 80-90% and it'll make a huge difference. It's worth it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild to me how much that like y- you'll just be handed a straw. I'm like, why are you just handing me a straw like that? Like, I don't use a straw. Like, what decade are we in? Not everybody thinks like us.
Wow, not here in the Bay, though. We outlawed the straws. We don't even
Fair,
have
fair. I live in North Carolina. It hasn't caught up here.
But now we are using these other, what are they? Corn based? I'm not really even sure. Actually, that's one of my projects, is to go, because all of our grocery stores have converted to the bio bags. And
Mm, nice.
one thing that I noticed though is that they crumble fast,
Yeah,
and I'm like, wait, what's in it? I need to know what's in it.
yeah,
I don't want it touching my food still until like it
yeah.
still doesn't feel right to me. So
It goes deep with the greenwashing and like, yeah, who has time to research everything? It's hard, but yeah, I definitely think that you're onto something really important, which is like reducing is still helpful, even if you can't fully eliminate.
yeah.
Well, very cool. So, Gayatri, I know that recently you kind of moved into another realm lately where you're not only supporting clients with optimizing their health, but you're helping practitioners who want to learn more about how to be effective with their cases. So, maybe you can share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so this fall I'm launching the functional clinic immersion mentorship, and I have not seen anybody do this yet, but it's basically no holds bar. I'm letting clinicians, other dietitians in on the back end of my health record. You can use my note templates, my session, my packages. Really use that to help you structure and build your long-term, plan for client retention. I have a 20-week done for you, white labeled gut hormone detox program. I'm now offering that literally with Practice Better. You're able to share a code and that will automatically get sent to your health record. So I think it's like super, convenient, easy to have that, it's accessible. But not only that, I'm offering, opportunity to listen to my consults, listen to my strategy, listen to how I'm talking to the clients to really establish that long-term relationship and establish the plan right from the get-go. So the expectations, I think that's really important to do it right at the beginning. And then, as you carry the client along, the next time you have to talk about money, it's not awkward because you've already established that in the very beginning.
Awesome.
So yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for new dietitians who have been in a clinical setting and they're really trying to get out and maybe reduce that burnout, start their own practice. It's also really excellent for other dietitians who have done the IFNA or maybe the next level program or another functional nutrition theory. So or even the SIBO Academy, so like when they have another level of support, they've got the modules, they've got the education part of things, but now they need the practical part of things. They need that, like, how do I actually do it? Let me watch, let me do, let me, implement, let me use those resources. So this is the perfect complement for any functional nutrition education program. I'm not going to be giving modules. That part is, out there already.
Yeah.
I'm going to offer Q&A support on the practice building part of things. And I'm going to offer that, shadowing opportunity to listen to consults, see how it's done, and provide resources.
Oh, so cool. It kind of reminds me of what I do with my practice. I'll try to get people who can intern with me for at least a few months and then hire them. And it's not that I'm putting them in some kind of like built out online course. It's that they're watching me see clients, they're helping me on the back end with my clients, they're seeing my notes, and they're watching it longitudinally so that they see the process of working overtime on a case, just to kind of help them connect the content to like reality of like what you're saying, because I think it is for dietitians what a big gap in terms of like there's places where they can go and learn and study, but then they can be sometimes kind of paralyzed in terms of like how to, now I'm like sitting here looking at a client, what do I do? Like helping them to connect that it sounds really valuable.
Absolutely. I got started because I was precepting with interns. I've been a preceptor for many years now. And I know for me, mentorship was the number one thing that really transformed my practice. And I think that I have a valuable gift. I mean, in addition to Dr. Dan Kalish, his mentor is Dr. Richard Lord, who created many of these lab tests. So I feel like it's this really special lineage that I'm carrying and I need to do something about it. And yes, I've been precepting interns, but I feel like if I now am able to mentor dietitians, I can then, pass this on and, but the knowledge from my mentors, but also the knowledge that I've gained just along the way, because it's a lot to try to build a practice and it's a lot to actually be able to live off of a practice. And that is, huge. I feel like I've done something right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe real quickly, where can people, if they're interested, where can they learn more about it?
Yeah. So if you can go over to my website,
Mhm.
23nutritiontherapy.com. I have a tab called mentorship. That's one way, but you can also find it on 23nutritiontherapy.com/functional dietitian mentorship and find the more information about that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gayatri. I think people will really benefit from this in terms of if they're needing support with their just chronic health challenges and they're kind of maybe this might help them just to kind of start thinking about where along that gut hormone toxin axis they might need support or just to get them interested in working along that axis. And then for practitioners who are interested in getting support, I love that you're offering this option. I'm excited to get the word out.
Yay. Thanks so much. It was so much fun to talk to you.
Absolutely. You too. We'll put it all in the show notes, and I'm sure if people have any questions, they'll get in touch with you. Talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye.